Changing gears now, we're talking security. Just yesterday, the court directed that the Nigerian Army maintain status quo ante. I don't know how they say that now, but correct, to the effect that they should hold on with Operation Positive Identification. That, of course, is generating reactions. We have guests in our studio this morning to help weigh in on the issue. What do they make of the intervention of the courts in this operation about to be carried out by the Nigerian Army, as well as a host of other issues involving the Nigerian military in recent times? I think the EFCC, as the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, is set to also investigate the security the military agencies as well. They want to see just how funds have been spent so far. Some people are saying, will it be within the jurisdiction of the EFCC to do that? We have with us this morning Major Gabriel Adofioku. I hope I'm pronouncing Adofioku. I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
Well, we'll go through it. It's a short course
we'll get there. But thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you
He's
very
a former
much,
Army officer, a development consultant, and also senior special advisor to the National Chairman, Nigerian Legion, and consultant on organization reforms of the Nigerian Legion. We also have with us Mr. Mike Ejiofor, who is a former director with the DSS. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily again. It's always a pleasure to have you. Now, gentlemen, how do you weigh in on this issue? You saw the huge controversy caused by Operation Positive Identification. We saw initially denials and acceptance, and later on it was seemed that until the House of Reps weighed in, we would never have known if this was something to be carried out by the Nigerian Army or not. But now the courts say, hold on with your Operation Positive Identification until the matter is concluded in a court of law. What are your thoughts? Let me first of all take yours, Mr. Ejiofor.
Well, you see, when the issue came up, I was one of the people opposed to it, this Operation Positive Identification, for obvious reasons. You see, like you said in my place, you cannot be carrying an elephant on your head and be using your leg to dig cricket. Nigerian Army is challenged. We have a lot of security challenges they have that to contend with. Then you're now coming to dig into internal security operations, Operation Positive Identification. It raised a lot of issues because people were not even enlightened as to what and what should be done. Positive identification, are they going to marry roadblock? Although the Army cleared that it's an intelligence-based driven operation, whereas they have doubts, they can raid that place and ask people to identify themselves. Another issue is, what kind of identification are you going to use? Is it the Nigeria identity card or international passport, the driver's license? There must be a standard. There was no standard in that operation. And it is not the responsibility of the Army constitutionally to begin to go into such an operation. That is left for the police. And I think the senior advocate who went to court to challenge it was right in doing so. And luckily enough, a ruling has been given that status quo ante should be maintained until the substantive matter is determined. So I think that's where we are. It's a very big challenge, and I feel that with the Army deployed in over 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory, let them contend with that. Northeast, we have a lot of challenge that they are yet to contend with. Then you are embarking on Operation Positive. I didn't see any reason for that.
So for you, too much on the plate of the Nigerian Army already?
Too much.
What are your thoughts, sir, Major?
Gabriel, thank you, Melkwe, and it's a privilege being on channels. Talking about Operation Positive Identification. First, let me clear one position. I'm not here to defend the Nigerian Army. Neither am I here to establish the legal intricacies of that is being handled in the courts. First, the question is, as a development concerned citizen of this country, the first thing that comes to my mind is, do we need to positively identify who a Nigerian is? The answer is yes. Secondly, do we have circumstances on the ground that requires Nigerians to get to know who is where and doing what? Yes, people will arrogate some kind of dictatorial tendencies in that kind of development. But I can assure you, go to the developed nations. You arrive there within 30 minutes of your arrival. Somebody somewhere knows somebody like this person is there. Not only the developed societies, even the underdeveloped ones. But what we are saying there is, do we have that social organization that gives us that? Insurgency and the kind of crisis the military is facing today is not peculiar to Nigeria, but it's not the kind of conventional operations that the military goes through anywhere in the world. However, we are in the learning process. The learning process of getting things done with constitutional backing, with legal authenticity. For that reason, I will say, let us allow it play through. But it sends a signal. If you say the army shouldn't have done it, whose responsibility is it? Why didn't that guy do it?
I was just going to ask you, I mean, when you said that, should we be doing Operation Positive Identification, or are we in a situation where Operation Positive Identification is necessary? Some people agree with you indeed that we are.
That's right.
However, the question will be, whose responsibility is it to carry it out? Is it the responsibility of the Nigerian Army? Mr. Ejiofor's point, if you listen to him very clearly, is that the Nigerian Army has too much on its plate to now take on that extra job. Do you agree with him in that regard?
I will say in the circumstances we are facing, please let us not stay out and judge the functional capability or capacity of any of the segments of the security agencies. You see, the Nigerian Army does not have the total responsibility for keeping the security of this country. Others have roles to play in it. If the Nigerian Army takes a step that seems a little bit extra to its existing roles, that we have a technical structure in the judicial system that will help us correct it. However, I wouldn't say in the present situation, please let nobody get it wrong. Nigerian Army is not overstretched. It's not overstretched. It's stretched, all right, because of the activities, the multiplicity of activities going on. But it's not overstretched. All we need now is...
The difference is what?
The difference is the Nigerian Army is facing a multiple operational circumstance at a given time in the situation of this country. However, like I did say, I agree with him. If the technical order entrenched in the Constitution says this is your role, and in the anxiety to get solutions, what the public needs, what the Nigerian average individual on the street needs, he doesn't need who does what. He needs, let me get it there. Let me get secured. Let me sleep well in my house. Let me move around without impairment. Let me do my business with ease and live my good life. That is what the public needs. However, we need to get our arts together, get behind the scene, work the synergy we need to get the people of Nigeria secured. That's my position.
Let's quickly go to Lagos now and take some questions from my colleagues. Chamberlain?
Well, yes, Major, first of all, good to see you after a long while. But I'd like to ask you, there's this impression that the armed forces, there's this us and them, armed forces and Nigeria police, this interagency rivalry seems to be costing Nigeria much. Well, yes, you did say, if it's not the responsibility of the army and there's a need for us to do that, why didn't the other person do it? But for those who think that there's been this either consistent, deliberate, or some sort of attempt or effort which alienates the police, not getting adequate funding for them to perform those functions of getting internal security sorted. And the army is taking on a lot more of these, which are not their primary responsibility. So shouldn't we have that deliberate attempt to ensure that the police is also integrated and ensure that they be the ones who are leading this rather than the army? Because if the army thinks about it, why can't they also in some way or the other ensure or lead or suggest or make efforts to ensure the police are in the front lines and not them being in the front lines?
Well, Chamberlain, thanks for that question. That takes us a little bit outside, the scope of our discussions now, on the ground that you are now talking about a kind of intersectorial justification for role plays in our society. The army, the police, the DSS, that's the Directorate of State Security, the civil defense, and every other player in this game of securing Nigeria cannot be taken in isolation in the kind of internal crisis we face in the country today. For that reason, I would, as a person, recommend a holistic review of our architecture of security management in the country. And if you do that, you will find, for example, I'll give you a very typical one. A divisional police outfit has certain logistic supports to be able to do its job. On paper, you need a given number of vehicles, operational vehicles. You need a given number of support equipment, as basic as walkie-talkie for in the dressing of the in the head-to-toe dressing of the policeman. You will need adequate communications equipment. You will, and so on and so forth. But when you get on the ground, what you have is a far cry from what can even keep them to respond to daily security requirements. However, permit me to say this. I think what we need now is a synergy of the various security agencies so that we don't specialize or get addicted to thinking everybody has its straitjacket rule. We need cooperation among them. We need support. I was excited the other day on the Abuja-Kaduna highway when I saw the police going into a quick relationship with the Air Force. Those are the kind of synergy we want. For this circumstance, in terms of resources allocation to the police, I want to say that is outside my consideration, because when it comes to money issues in Nigeria and allocation of money issues for public activities, I get very apprehensive because, one, you got to establish how much money has been going there. Two, how much of that money has been used. Three, how much money do you need? And when you put these things together, you get a different program, and you need a different program for it. But for now, yes, like my friend here has said,
let me jump in.
The courts have ruled that the army should stay action. Yes,
okay.
Go ahead.
Let me take it to Mr. Joffer and ask him. Well, Mr. Joffer, first, do you agree that there is a need for positive identification? Oh, wait, let me not use that word. Because in several other countries, you don't just walk in and out. Your ID, you have to have that almost at any point in time, because security agencies there could call upon you at any time for you to identify yourself, which is a normal thing to do. Do you think we have to have that measure in place, and how do we go about it?
Well, before you talk of positive identification, there must also be negative identification. Whatever that means, I don't know. We don't have a standard for identifying ourselves in Nigeria. That's the point I was trying to make. And I've said this, I just want to agree with him. He said that the military is not overstretched. The military is overstretched. They deserve our sympathy. They deserve our support. But that is not to say that we should shy away from the truth. Take, for instance, he talked about financing. Talk about the budget of 2020. The defense budget is 100 billion naira. And out of this 100 billion, you have over 60% as recurrent. So where are these people going to be paid allowances? And that is why you see that some of the soldiers, they claim their allowances are not paid, they become unruly, and you are adding more problems to them now. You are deploying them to more operational areas. I think we should, within the military, they should be able to manage the lean resources. I'm putting emphasis on the lean resources they have. Because, like I said, it's our military, it's the Nigerian military. They need our support, we need to support them, they need our sympathy, they are being killed every day. So, I mean, the issue is that they are taking too much. They have too much on the table, so they should try as much as possible to reduce the burden on them. That's the point I'm making. It's not as if what they are doing, but statutory and constitutionally, that's not their responsibility. The police is the lead agency in maintenance of internal security, while the army defends our territorial integrity. It's clear. But the military can also be involved in our internal security maintenance if they are called upon by the president and their processes, their procedures. I tell you, the military has been demystified. In those days when we were young, you hardly see the military. I continue to say it. I remember with nostalgia, one man in my place, one Captain Waka, if he's on leave and comes home, you see him in his well-ironed uniform walking on the street. Children will be walking behind him to say left, right, man. But now, military is everywhere. They have been demystified. The major problem we're going to have now is that because of the influence of the society, the military is being corrupted.
Speaking about funding, which you also you referenced lean resources, which they do have. Now, there's also the EFCC chairman was quoted to have said that, look, they're going to have to look into the resources or the finances of sister agencies. Well, not that they're better than them, but given the fact that EFCC is everywhere to do those investigations, they will do that. What do you think that the implication of that will be?
Well, before I comment on that, that story was not widely publicized. I want to believe that the chairman of the EFCC never made that statement. But if he did, it's quite unfortunate. Very unfortunate, because he has no limits as to investigations. We are aware of the $2.1 billion scam. Military people, top military people, the NSA, everybody were involved in the matter, is under investigation. I'm also aware that an Inspector General of Police was convicted based on plea bargain between 2002 and 2004, Tafa Balogun. So they have no limits. But for the EFCC chairman to have been quoted to say that he's going to investigate the activities of the military, our security agencies, that's very unfortunate. One is going to bring bad blood, interagency rivalry, and who will police the EFCC? Or EFCC, are they not Nigerians? There's corruption everywhere. We should not shy away from it. There's corruption everywhere in Nigeria, in every sector of our economy. If you talk of the... I'm also aware that some EFCC officials
are you saying there is corruption in the EFCC
and
as
tried
well?
for corruption.
Are you suggesting that there is corruption in the EFCC as well,
to
Mr.
make
Jofo?
the statement is...
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Are you suggesting that there is corruption in the EFCC as well?
Oh, are EFCC officials made of angels? Of course, they are Nigerians. There's corruption, there's no exception. I want to emphasize that. For every... Except you are telling me that EFCC people are not Nigerians. They're imported from... there's corruption everywhere. So who will... If he says he's going to take the lead, I'm not against investigating the activities of security agencies or whatever, but for him to have come out to say that he's going to investigate the activities of... that's quite unfortunate. If there are reports made to him on specific issues of corruption, yes, I agree. But for you to deliberately go to say you are going to investigate the activities of I think that is going to breed bad blood and compound our security situation that is on ground. What are you going to do if you go to find out that there are procedures not followed in maybe in purchase of arms? Then you return the arms, so what are you going to do?
Mr. Joffer, let me take this to General. General, I'm wondering, what do you make of the EFCC, intending to investigate security agencies, especially their funding? Do you agree that it's going to breed bad blood, or you think it is something that would help the security agencies to be more accountable and efficient?
Okay. First of all, let me quickly, on a lighter note, people take delight in calling me General. Yes, I'm General Major, not a Major General. Two different technical names. However, getting on the issue, in line with what Mr. Ejiofor has said, permit me to say that if that comment, I haven't read it really anywhere, except recently I began to get the fillers on them. If that comment came from the chairman of the EFCC, is strongly unfortunate. However, the EFCC does not have to go to the market to tell the Nigerian world, this is what we want to do. You go ahead and do what you are statutorily assigned to do, and let the society get the result of what you do. If you have some constraints, then you make it public.
Why do you say it's unfortunate, though?
It's unfortunate for the following reasons. One, is it really necessary? Do you need to come and tell us we want to investigate the military?
Or is it the telling or the carrying out of the act itself?
The carrying out is your responsibility. Go ahead and do it. And if you have any constraints, that is when you begin to shout out. But to go to the market, for example, if you ask me, I'm telling you, I will tell you that what they have, if that statement is true from the chairman, I will tell you that it's just staging the military for castigation by the society. You don't need to. Go ahead and do your job. You want to get on the teachers, you want to investigate teachers nationwide, go ahead and do it. You want to investigate pensioners like me, go ahead and do it. You don't have to go to the market and say, I want to begin to investigate the military for the huge sums allocated to them.
His words were sister security agencies. That's
yes,
what he
sister
said.
security agencies. In fact, you don't even need to announce it. That's my position. You don't need to. Go ahead and do it. You know where the issues are. Begin to dig them up, and then, except if you are receiving any kind of constraints, any kind of what you call a brick wall.
Yeah, so do you agree, though, that the EFCC can probe any government or any security agency? Because I would have thought that perhaps part of the trouble or the point of controversy would have been that the EFCC does not have the powers to do that.
The act establishing the EFCC gives them that open leverage to peep into the financial activities of any organization, public organization in the country, and even private. That's the interesting bit of it. So for me, it's like saying, okay, I'm in the market with Gary in my bag, and I've come to sell the Gary, and then I turn around and begin to tell the people, from this moment I'll start selling Gary. You're not telling them anything. You don't need to. Go ahead, do your job.
Just quickly, gentlemen, I want you to react to this video that has been making the rounds. This video of torture. I think on Monday, news broke that the Nigerian military had, tortured some individual and buried him in a shallow grave. The Nigerian military has condemned that particular action. But in recent times, we have been seeing that the Nigerian military has been put in bad light by its own military officers. Would you say that they are upholding very strongly the tenets of discipline and also letting them know that human rights are sacrosanct within their operations?
First of all, let me say it loud and clear that that video, if it is truly a Nigerian, so many, videos fly around in social media these days. particularly this one, when I looked at it and I saw you couldn't see the faces of the operatives and all that. If it's truly a Nigerian situation, it's unfortunate, and like the military has said from the comments I read yesterday, that they are taking, they're screening that video to be able to investigate its source, the circumstances, and deal with it as appropriate.
Gentlemen, I'm told we're totally out of time. We have to go now. Let me thank both of you for coming on Sunrise Daily. We had with us Mr. Mike Ejiofor, who's the former director of the DSS. Thank you for coming on, sir. And we also had with us Major Gabriel Adofiku. Yeah, you heard him there. Thank you for helping me out with that name. He's a former army officer and a development consultant. Sunrise Daily will continue in a moment. Please stay with us.